So this second video has to do with the ontological question of the human soul, and what the Buddhists taught about the human soul is very different than what we Christians believe. So according to the Pali Canon, and which is the sayings of the Buddha, the Buddhist view of the soul is anatta, or no soul. So I'm just going to read this, it's easier for me. When evangelizing a Buddhist, a Christian is inadvertently challenging fundamental beliefs of a Buddhist person. This specifically is the idea of a human soul. So the Christian hope of an immortal or eternal soul is a concept the Buddha warned against specifically. Gautama himself warned his followers against the concept of an eternal soul. To believe in a self was taught as another form of ignorance, or avijja, one motivated by self-preservation, that which the Buddha sought to divest his followers from explicitly. Instead, anatta, or no soul, was taught. So I want to read this book by Walpola Rāhula again. He is a doctor. He studied the Pali Canon, the Buddhist scriptures, extensively. He's an expert in his field. He's also a doctor. And he has some interesting things to say about the Buddhist belief about soul. So I'm just going to read this. Buddhism stands unique in the history of human thought in denying the existence of such a soul or self or Atman. According to the teaching of the Buddha, the idea of self is an imaginary, false belief which has no corresponding reality, and it produces harmful thoughts of me and mine, selfish desire, craving, attachment, ill will, conceit, pride, egoism, and other defilements, impurities, and problems. It is the source of all the troubles in the world, from personal conflicts to wars between nations. In short, to this false view can be traced all the evil in the world. It's a very strong statement. And again, I think I read this once before. I'm going to read it again because it talks about the soul as well. According to Buddhism, our ideas of God and soul are false and empty. Though highly developed as theories, they are all the same extremely subtle mental projections, garbed in an intricate metaphysical and philosophical phraseology. So that's a really clear picture of what the Buddha taught about the soul. And that is very different than the Christian concept of the soul. We believe very strongly in the idea of an immortal soul, and that every person has been given this gift from God of an immortal soul. So Buddhism teaches, of course, that the ideal state for a human being is the extinguishment of self. I think I said in one of my videos before that it was the annihilation of self. But then I was reading Walpola's book, and he said it's not the annihilation of self. What it is, it's the annihilation of the false concept of self. So I stand corrected in that. So Buddhādasa Bhikkhu explains, our purpose in life is to bring to a standstill the cycle of samsara, to put a complete end to the unsatisfactory condition. Samsara is the cycle of birth, life, death, and basically the idea of reincarnation, that we are all trapped in a cycle of reincarnation. And what the Buddha taught about this cycle of reincarnation was that it's not the spirit or soul that's reincarnated. Actually, it's all the selfish cravings and desires of a person and their past sins that is reincarnated into another being. So it's a very interesting belief. So the destiny of a Christian soul or spirit of a human looks very different than that of the destiny of a Buddhist soul or spirit. Whereas Christians believe man has a single life and then his soul or spirit will go on to its permanent residence, the Buddhists believe in samsara, the endless cycles of rebirth and suffering until one has obtained nirvana. In these endless lives, there is opportunity for the person to be in different states, which are elaborated in great detail in the Buddhist scriptures. So whereas Christians believe we are born, we have one life, and then we die, and then we're judged, Buddhists don't believe that. They believe that they have an endless number of previous lives, and that their present life right now is a reflection of how what kind of person they were in their previous lives. And if they mess up this life, they can do a better job in the next time around. So that is also a real obstacle when sharing the gospel. And how do we deal with this? Genesis teaches some very important fundamental things about humanity. Basically, that God created human beings and He endowed us with worth and value, intrinsic value, and that we, the created world has value as well. And there is, the Buddhists teach in multiple levels of existence, and of course the Christians teach that there is the spiritual realm and the material realm. So what I like to do when I share Christ, or before I share Christ with Buddhists, because I never start with Christ, I start with ontological questions first. So what I like to do is I like to go back to the Genesis story and share about creation, and establish that there is a creator God, and establish the fact that we are created with a soul, or a spirit that was given to us by God, because God breathed into man and basically gave some of his essence to man. So man is very different from animals. And all that God created is good. So those are very different concepts, and it gives value to people instead of people feeling like they're born and they are just the incarnation of old cravings and sins. They can have a different perspective on that, and that helps them later understand, as you continue to teach and share about what other things, what other truths are there that will help them come to the point where they understand the message of the gospel. And this piece of art behind me, we're at a temple right now that is a temple that depicts hell, Buddhist hell, and it's huge, and it's just full of sculptures, and each sculpture depicts a certain torment that a person will can anticipate that they will have to endure when they go to a Buddhist hell, according to what sin they did. So this sin was extorting people, basically, and so they're paying for their extortion in a Buddhist hell for extorters. And it's so interesting. There are, we have ideas about heaven and hell, but they're not very clear as Christians. But the Buddhist concepts about heaven and hell are pretty well articulated and detailed. And hell in particular is very well detailed here at this temple. And so this temple would be a frightening place for a Buddhist to come visit, because whatever sins they have in their life, they have to think about the consequences of that. But what's different for us is, we believe that if you go to heaven or if you go to hell, that is your eternal state. But they believe that once they pay for their sins, then they get another chance and they can be reborn again. So that's very different than our concept of eternal soul or eternal state or heaven and hell. So.